Thank you very much for these three very stimulating reflections. I think if we look at what has been said, is that I think everybody agrees that what we are facing in the Anthropocene are very, very deep structural, systemic changes, and that research and education should play a role in fostering that transition towards new structures that are in harmony with life on this planet. And I think a recurring theme in the three discussions is that it concerns integrated or holistic approaches to correct the hyper-specialist, hyper-disciplinary silo approach. And I think this apparently this integration not only has to do with the intellectual approach, looking at the problems that we face, or reality or societal reality, not with one disciplinary lens, but by integrating many types of knowledge, both academic and non-academic. Integrative also means involving the entire person. The words head, heart, hands, and hope have become like a mantra. And I think the third way in which things have to be integrated is that we have to reintegrate the hope for the future is not an extrapolation of the past, since the past and the present are the way we organize things are unsustainable. So integrating that vision, the word vision or the mission of the universities, to envision a new future should also be integrated now, and not just looking at the truth that we discover out there and then try to extrapolate from that what can be or should be. So, and everybody also agreed that many leverages or many changes have to be put in place. And I was quite impressed with Ursula's approach of Canada, where funding, one of the key issues, Thomas Reuter has stressed that many times, where the funding has really tried to stimulate this more integrative, integral, transdisciplinary approach. So maybe I would first like to ask the people from the studio if anybody there would like to react to the one of the presentations or the three presentations. Benno, can I pass you the word? Or your colleagues?
I was probably Thomas I just had my time for a presentation.
Okay.
So first Thomas, and then I can come back and.
Thank you, Benno. Yeah, I think I'm not sure who's watching, but on the assumption that not all of us are academics, not all of the viewers, I should like to just clarify something about the idea of the academy, the so-called ivory tower and all those kinds of cliches that are still very strong in the general population, or the perception. But the reality is, as anyone in this system knows, is that the university are not run by academics. In most countries, they are now corporatized. They are governed, managed, controlled by the corporate sector for profit. Okay. Certainly, where I spent most of my career in Australia, that's the case. So, just to give one example, I very much believe in these ideas of engagement, of working with other stakeholders, and I've put that into practice. And I remember distinctly an annual assessment session I had with my dean, where it turned out that my engagement points in the point system were about 10 times the maximum allowable points for engagement. And I said, well, what about the other 90% of my activities in that area? And the dean responded, well, Professor Reuter, we don't mind what you do in your spare time, that's your hobby. So what I understand is the academy is taking place as a hobby activity in reality often. There are exceptions. There's some great programs. There's some universities that have the funds and the vision to do exceptional things, like the Yale Design Laboratories, for example, come to mind, for interdisciplinary and engaged work. And there are many examples, but by and large, the system is such that there's enormous competition. I have to tell my PhD students, if you want an entry-level postdoc fellowship, you need a book and 5 journal articles, or you have no hope. Okay, from my experience as an assessor of those applications. And that's what academics produced in their lifetime, not so long ago, that amount of publications. And the whole system, the rating of universities, everything, everyone is pitted against everyone else, every faculty, every discipline, every individual, and the universities against each other in the international rating scales. I think that's a huge impediment to the kind of academic, genuine academic, engaged sort of practice that we would like, that we are envisaging here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thomas, can I give... Okay.
Yeah,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like
Go ahead,
just to comment on what I really much liked in Paul Shrivastava's presentation is his emphasis on universities of living labs. So if you want to build up really people, young people, that can speak and act authentically in the field of sustainability, they have to learn it, especially, or there's a big potential to learn it through their university they will be attached to. So this could be one of the important points of this conference, to call all universities to engage deeply in sustainability issues, but not only in research, but also in the organization of the daily practices of everything that has to do with the university, from eating to traveling and the organization of the buildings and so on. We tried that in Jena many, many years ago. It's very complicated to get the attention of the different sectors of the university administration to implement such claims. So it's a long way to go, I guess, in every university. And so it would be great if UNESCO and other institutions, or also Science Council and so on, could put the emphasis on this. Maybe in the future, universities are also ranked, or some are already, not only in respect of funding and research money and citations, but also how much they engage in sustainability issues and get a ranking according to that, because people believe in general ranking, even if they are probably not the best tool to change practices. But if that's the one thing that people are listening to, maybe that could be a possibility.
Yeah, I think also it'd be a really good idea if the big institutions like the International Science Council, UNESCO and so on, took some control of that ranking and actually helped the universities to get behind them and say, well, you should be rewarded or ranked highly if you work interdisciplinary, if you engage. But as it is, we have the Times Higher Education rankings, and who are the people who control those rankings? It's not the umbrella organizations for science, as it should be. And I think there it's possible to come up with new ranking schemes that we actually own and control, we meaning the academic sector.
Maybe Paul can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention the THE rankings, but before I say anything about the substance, let me assure those of you who are watching on YouTube, I am not as boring as I made myself look in that presentation. We're going to liven this up by pointing out that the discourse right now is still at a discipline level. We are sort of interlocutors of various disciplines and talking about how we bring each other together. Gentlemen and ladies, that train has passed. The world doesn't need more interdiscipline or multidiscipline or pluridiscipline. The world needs to get beyond discipline and look at real problems. There are a lot of them, and there are only about 10 to 15 years left to solve them before irreversible changes take place.
Yes.
So let's not forget the urgency. And to Tom's point, there is a whole political economy out there within which change and transformation will have to occur. This is not going to happen easily and without bloodshed. This is going to require deep disruption. So let me just give you an example of deep disruption without having blood on the floor. And it'll take a minute to spell it out, but it shows you what it will take for transformation to occur. So my university just bought 70 megawatts of solar power by signing a power purchase agreement. Power purchase agreements are common. A lot of universities are doing it to decarbonize their own electricity. We, at 70 megawatts, we would decarbonize 25% of the electricity. But if you want this power purchase to be transformative, you cannot sign it just as a legal document saying, I will buy power from these power plants for 30 years at this price. You need to engage in it in the multiple facets of electricity production, energy justice, economic equality and inequality, ecological land management practices, and a variety of other things. So the way we did it, it took us 18 months to get to this decision. But the way we did it, we brought in Nature Conservancy to partner with us. We brought in private consultants, lawyers, private companies who produce solar. And we said, we want an agreement in which we want to manage the 500 acres of land to produce ecological services. And we want that investment of $70 million that we are making to benefit the community. And here are the stipulations of what we mean by benefiting the community. And the decarbonization is just a sort of cherry on the top for us. But from a financial standpoint, we also want this agreement to save money for the university. The entire financial division of the university bought into the program because it was going to save $14 million over a 25 or 30-year period. So there are many stakeholders in place, and giving each stakeholder something to work with, some benefit to get out of the deal, is the essence of this kind of transformation. It takes 18 months instead of a normal power purchase agreement in our system takes 1 month. So you have to be able to put in the resources in order to do the transformation.
Thank you, Paul. We don't have that much time left, and I would like everybody to get the chance to contribute. So, Carlos, did you want to add something to the discussion?
Yes, I mean, agreeing with a lot of what was said, and especially with what Paul just said, that it's not time, there is no time left for keeping in disciplines, you know. I would like to stress this point, that there are different manners to address the transformations we need. And there are manners which may look good but fall short of what we need, because we keep thinking about the future as a projection of the present. So on one side, we recognize the complexity of the challenges that humanity faces. And we understand, we need contributions from all disciplines, and we need a more integrative approach. And second, later, we still want to have a linear 10-step plan to get to the future we want, and to ensure impact and so on, which is a characteristic of the conceptual framework which we have to leave behind. So what I would like to say is that it's not enough to use labels of transdisciplinarity and so on, if we think about using the same mechanisms for the future. And this is in particular related to the mention on rankings. Rankings of universities are a very bad idea, whoever does them. it's an embodiment of the concept of competition, while we need something completely different. And in that sense, I like very much the example that Paul Srivastava put, that why don't we use universities as, he said, community change makers. I'm a bit worried about that, because it still sounds as the arrogance of the academic community having the capacity to change things. But if I understood well what he was talking about, it's exactly about, let's work with the communities to find out what are the real questions in the real world. And from that, which is complete change of the way questions are asked, and from that, let's find solutions.
Thank you, Carlos. I see there are no questions from the audience, so I would maybe like to just quickly go back to Ursula and ask, since they put in place a different funding mechanism, if you did notice that this has indeed set in motion certain changes in the world of academia, and that could be a nice way to finish, to focus on what emerges in terms of
yes, and I would be happy. I have numerous examples, and I'd be happy to share these with the conference organizers as a reference. And many of the themes that I've heard today, I have to say, have been said quite for some time in terms of trajectories, career trajectories, the importance of community-led research. So I just really want to illustrate the number of the mechanisms that we've undertaken to actually stimulate change that could be over time, but as well some new initiatives that hold institutions accountable for new models of how to do research that really, and so in January 2020, we released a new tri-agency, so Natural Sciences Engineering, Health Research Institutes, and SSHRC, to build Indigenous research capacity. And this speaks to our commitment and Canada's commitment to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. I won't go through it, but it demonstrated a new way of engagement, not a consultation, engagement to reflect our commitment to new relations with Indigenous peoples. So I'm happy to share a link there. We launched the first tri-agency competition for knowledge synthesis and knowledge gathering on the topic of living within Earth's carrying capacity. This is the first time that the other agency joined us on this. We have 30 projects that were funded, and there'll be a forum to discuss the outcomes. So we'll be able to do that thereafter. Strong focus on student training. So in partnership with Global Affairs Canada, we provide an opportunity. This is the 5th year for an International Policy Ideas Challenge. It recognizes the importance of providing these training opportunities for students. It gives students a voice, and it is challenging for them to be able to adapt to their policy ideas from their research at an early stage. These are graduate students, doctoral candidates, postdoctoral fellows, to a policy brief. They don't receive that training in the institution. They are not recognized, that's not valued. But to see a funding agency provide these incentives, these are small incentives in many ways. They win $3,000. We have close to 100 submissions for 5 winners. So building these gradual incentives, but then also creating through new models, new ways, mechanisms that reinforce our commitment to doing things differently, but also hold the institutions accountable is really, really important. And then finally, I'll just mention we launched in Canada a new fund called New Frontiers in Research, NFREF, Canada loves acronyms, where this is targeted $275 million to multidisciplinary teams, was considered high risk, so methodologies, testing, and through a number of streams, targeted to early career researchers, small teams, as well as to international teams on global challenges. And then finally, within our own programs, we recognize, and I think this speaks to the comments of, we need to provide smaller grants. So we have scalable grants, we call them partnership engaged grants, for that opportunity to start working and building relationships with community leaders, with policy leaders on addressing a challenge on a small scale that can then be graduated to a 2-year grant, that can then be graduated to a long grant, because that relationship building to build trust and understanding and acknowledgement and openness to recognizing different knowledge systems, including Indigenous knowledge systems, takes time. So those are just a few examples that I wanted to share, and I'd be happy to share links to all of these at any time.
Thank you very much.